When I was a kid, I had a friend who lived near an abandoned railroad track. And there was a gully on one side with a shallow stream at the bottom. And we were swinging on vines, swinging out over that gully. And at one point, my friend kicked off the bank, and all of a sudden, it was like time had stopped for me. Instead of seeing the whole scene, I was seeing the individual pieces of the scene. I was seeing the sun filtering down through the trees and making patterns of light on his body. And I could see his hands gripping the vine, and I could almost feel like the vine was in my hands instead of his hands. And his arms and his legs were in a sort of a perfect proportion, like the branches and the trees behind him. It was the first time that I'd been aware that there was this difference between the ordinary world that I was used to living in and this sort of deeper world that seemed to be there at the same time. My friend was just a kid, just swinging on vines. He was just a kid in the woods like I was. But now I could see that there was this other level of aliveness, if that's a word. There were the basic parts of the world, of the scene that I was seeing. There was the light, and there were the trees, and the motion of his body. But then there was this something else that was hidden inside of those parts. As I got older, I started to see how thinking about things like this was going to create problems for me. In school, we were taught how to read maps. We were taught the legend and the compass and the symbols and all the measurements, and there was this implication that we would need maps, that we would go out into the world and find romance and heroism and live life by discovering the world. But I felt like I needed a map of the world inside me just as much. In fact, I needed it more. I needed to learn how to navigate those places. I studied film and writing in school. I have made a few short films. I write, and I occasionally see myself in print, get published, but there's not much of an income there, so I spend a lot of time trying to get jobs that I know are completely wrong for me. I go in and out of employment. I struggle to stay afloat financially, and I do feel shame over my lack of material success and stability. But every time I have a steady job like that, a job that has a commute and a cubicle and a paycheck and a pension, I feel like I'm committing a sin of some kind. Not a sin like in a religious sense, but a sin against myself. In those cases, I might have a tangible, respectable place in society, but I feel worthless and pointless on the inside. I mean, is a person defined only by what they do for a job? I mean, is their self measured only in relation to society and how well they fit into it? I seem to be skilled at things that have virtually no value. I'm really good at observing and making connections and looking at things, and I'm an expert, I'd say, at reflection, or I could say I'm a genius at feeling. But these things don't add anything to a bank account, so what value do they have? For the past few years, there's been a lot of anxiety and fear and death in my life, and it's been kind of a weight that I've been trying to learn how to carry. But I think everyone has a weight like that. Everyone has their own weight. And death is there for everybody. It's even there for my friend when I was a kid on the abandoned railroad track. I mean, even as he was arcing out over the water, time was passing, and time is not limitless. And I think once you know this, there's a voice that's always asking, how do I live with the fact that nothing is permanent? You know, how do I proceed in my life not knowing what's going to happen? And is it possible to be happy like this? I take a walk like on a Saturday morning when nothing is awake and the air isn't hot or cold, almost like the air is not there at all. And I look at the old brick buildings, the rooftops and the facades and the chimneys, and I see the copper has oxidized and it's got that green patina on it, and the decorative touches on all the buildings and the brickwork are decaying. And I look at all these things and I have no idea anymore what I'm looking at. I'm sort of seeing it all, but seeing through it at the same time. The details are stripped of any individual meaning, and in a sort of a baffling way, they all become the same nameless thing. The ingredients, I understand. The ingredients are brick and copper and the sunlight and time. But what does it all add up to? For a minute, I can see that there's no difference between those things and me. And there's no difference between my friend swinging on the vine and me standing nearby observing him. There's no difference between anything, really. I understand at that time that I don't understand anything, and I really don't know who or what I am. But somehow I think that I might be all of these things at once.
It's difficult to give it a name. It just is. But one can call it nothing. And it is in this isness that all creation takes place. As far as I remember, I have always felt very lost in this world. Since I was a very small child, I have always felt I don't belong here. I've always felt very alone and I always felt very scared. And I felt I just didn't know how to deal with this world. Socially, used to feel like I didn't belong. The way I looked, I had some genetic issues with my legs. There was a lot of fear of survival, as if I couldn't survive without my mom. So there was a lot of attachment to her all the time. It was just like I was managing however I could. I was very easily hurt, and so I could be quite nasty when I was hurt, and I could be so nasty that they wouldn't hurt me again. Even with my own family, I was quite harsh, I would say, in that sense. All the time feeling disconnected from the world, feeling lost in the world.
Yeah. Come. China. Oh, it's ready? Yeah.
So when I went to college, that time I met Vipin, and he was very spiritually oriented. So I think that is where the first time that desire arose to really know what is this and is it for real. Then around 15 years ago was the time when I was to get married and there were issues. My mother was suffering from cancer, and I have held as I can't survive without her. It was almost like an existential issue for me to think that she would die. There were issues with relationship, there were marriage issues, career was not doing anything well. So on all sides things were happening. And I was using my usual strategies of fighting, of blocking, of protecting myself, and somehow it was only getting worse. Till then I felt I had got a handle on life. I could control things. And at that time I felt there was nothing I could do that could control anything. And I tried doing many things and nothing worked. I think that is the key point when I opened to the possibility of exploring that there was more. And there were so many things that were beyond my control and beyond my understanding. And so that is where it began. And since then, I don't think I've really had to search, because one by one I've been led into the right books, into the right people, into the right teaching, and it's been a constant journey till today. So around that time then we decided to take a trip to Rishikesh, and it was just a trip. We didn't think about why. But when I reached Rishikesh and I met the Ganges, at that time I really had this very strong feeling of coming home, and I felt that I had come to my mother's home. It was there at the banks of the Ganges when I made my first connection with the self. And since then, the Ganges has been my guru and teacher. The energy there is very high, so the awarenesses, the realizations are also very deep. What I could see was that there was this belief in that this is who I am, and till you keep believing that you are this personality and that you are this body and this mind is your own and your thoughts are your own and your emotions are your own, you're going to stay trapped. Having to have this identity, protect it, look after it, project it, it's very tiresome. In fact, I used to have this thing of my peace would get disturbed very easily. There was a lot of separation also. So now it's just we are all the same. And when I look at somebody, there is no two. That separation that one feels at birth, when you suddenly feel the body around you and everybody around you reflects the same. They see you as a separate person, as a separate body, give you a separate name. So the awareness is basically to start seeing this. Really, that's where it starts. The realization now is that there are no two. No, there's no this or that. Because there is nothing good or bad. They are actually the same.
एक्चुअली मैं बहुत बदमाश हूँ और मुझे लगता है कि अब तो प्रणव मेरे अंदर पूरी तरह समा गया. आई हैव बिकम एज नॉटी एज ही वाज, मे बी इवन मोर. कनक I know I cannot trust you.
Anupriya, don't hide. Anupriya, would you come out? No, my head. You look kind of like bodily because you got blurred. I'm cool. Very good. Thank you.
तो आज घर जाके खाना बनाएंगे सब.
नहीं अभी तो पॉपकॉर्न बना रहे हैं क्योंकि नेक्स्ट टाइम मैं नहीं कुछ भी करूँगी. Now auntie is growing old.
He was born a normal, healthy child, very bubbly, always smiling, and he had very attractive eyes, and he would do the talking with his eyes. And then suddenly, when he was 8 years old, he started falling sick. With every hospitalization, we used to think that this is the last one, but it never happened. 2011 we got his surgery done, which did not help him, and he was not even able to tolerate water. After that he had these tubes, these central lines through which we were feeding him, and even during that phase he always had reasons to smile, and I used to sometimes lose hope and would cry, but not him. He always used to say, "Mama, God is polishing me." I used to think as to why this child had to undergo so much of pain, but it is only now, after he left his physical self, that I realize what was the purpose of his undergoing that pain. Because the way he lived in those 2 years, he inspired his friends and his doctors and his teachers. After he left me, his teachers came up with the suggestion that I should write a book on him. And I was like, a book on a 13-year-old child? Not even 13. So, what will I write? And what has he done? They made me realize how he had lived and had inspired his friends and the people around him. And when they started sharing their stories, then I realized that his purpose of undergoing that pain was to inspire people. With a view to compile everything that was written about him, I started this page in his memory, Inspirational Pranav, on Facebook. he had such a different perspective towards life. And I started sharing those incidents on his page, the conversations, and I was really surprised when a child called me up and he said, "Auntie, I wanted to commit suicide." But I don't know how it happened. Accidentally, I came across Pranav's page and I started reading it, and I started postponing my suicidal plans. And today I want to live, and I owe my life to Pranav. I feel that child is Pranav, who's smiling and saying, "See, Mama, I'm alive." He has made my life so wonderful that I get love from unknown people, people who don't even know me, and they are sending their love and blessings to me in their own sweet way. So he's made my journey so beautiful. And that is the reason for me to carry on in life.
Because he kicks on the knife, kicks in the knife.
I was able to connect with Pranav via FaceTime on Christmas Day in 2012. What was amazing to me was how positive Pranav was, even in the face of illness. He was such an inspiration to the people around him, and you could see how his energy gave energy to other people. It's amazing that even 2 years after his passing, Pranav is still giving people hope and love.
अरे वाह कैसे ठीक है जो हाय हाय हाउ कम यू आर लेट
Mom की class
welcome the boys are there
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Pranav. Happy birthday to you.
Pranav's friends are my children now. They are Pranav for me. Actually, I really feel the whole world is my family. It's as if Pranav has made me fall in love with this world once again.
Pranav, Pranav, छोड़िए बेटा. Yeah, very good.
I don't know what this feeling is. I can't give it any name. But every time I meet someone, I see Pranav smiling in their heart. I actually see him smiling in everything.